August 6th, 1945, a date etched in the annals of history. Hiroshima, a city nestled amidst the picturesque islands of Japan, became the focal point of an event that would forever alter the course of human history. The world watched in horror and awe as the destructive power of the atomic bomb was unleashed. Before that fateful day, Hiroshima was a bustling city. Its inhabitants went about their daily lives, oblivious to the shadow that loomed large on the horizon. The city, with its military significance, had remained largely unscathed by the relentless air raids that had ravaged other Japanese cities. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The world held its breath. The world had been engulfed in the flames of World War II for 6 long years. Millions lay dead, countless others were wounded, and entire cities were reduced to rubble. The United States, drawn into the conflict after the attack on Pearl Harbor, found itself locked in a bitter struggle against Japan in the Pacific Theater. Despite the mounting casualties, Japan refused to surrender. The Japanese military, fueled by nationalism and a belief in their own invincibility, seemed determined to fight to the bitter end. The prospect of a costly invasion of mainland Japan loomed large, threatening to prolong the war and result in even more bloodshed. It was against this backdrop that the United States, under President Harry S. Truman, made a fateful decision, a decision that would change the course of history. The development of the atomic bomb, shrouded in secrecy and driven by the urgency of wartime, had presented the United States with a weapon of unprecedented power. The Manhattan Project had successfully tested the world's first atomic bomb at the Trinity site in New Mexico just weeks earlier. The use of such a devastating weapon was a decision not to be taken lightly. Some argued that the bomb should be used as a demonstration to force Japan's surrender without bloodshed. Others believed that only the full force of the atomic bomb could break Japan's will to fight and bring the war to a swift end. The decision to use the atomic bomb remains a subject of intense debate to this day. Some historians argue that it was a necessary evil, a decision that ultimately saved lives by preventing a bloody invasion of mainland Japan. The use of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima marked a turning point in human history, ushering in the atomic age and forever altering the nature of warfare. In the heart of the Japanese home islands, life in Hiroshima continued with a strange duality. Families tended their gardens, children played in the streets, and shopkeepers hawked their wares. Yet the spectre of conflict loomed. Air raid drills were commonplace, a stark reminder of the vulnerability of their existence. Unbeknownst to the citizens of Hiroshima, whispers of a new weapon, a weapon of unimaginable power, were circulating within the highest echelons of power. The Manhattan Project had yielded a terrifying creation, the atomic bomb. The decision to use this weapon had been made, a decision shrouded in secrecy and fraught with ethical dilemmas. The target, Hiroshima, a city of strategic military significance. The die was cast, the wheels of fate set in motion. August 6, 1945. The day dawned like any other in Hiroshima. The rising sun cast its golden rays over the city, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Half a world away, on the tiny island of Tinian, the crew of the Enola Gay, a B-29 superfortress bomber, prepared for their mission. Their cargo was no ordinary payload. It was the culmination of years of research, a weapon capable of unleashing the very fury of the atom. As the Enola Gay roared down the runway and lifted into the pre-dawn sky, the fate of Hiroshima was sealed. The bomber, its silver fuselage gleaming under the Pacific sun, climbed steadily towards its rendezvous with destiny. The journey was long, the tension palpable. Every hum of the engines, every crackle of the radio static served as a stark reminder of the gravity of their mission. Hiroshima, nestled at the delta of the Ota River, bustled with life, oblivious to the approaching danger. The city, a center for industry and military logistics, was home to over 350,000 people. Its streets, a mix of modern buildings and traditional wooden houses, were crowded with civilians going about their daily routines. The Enola Gay, after hours of flight, approached its target. The crew, their faces etched with a mixture of apprehension and grim determination, made their final preparations. Below, the sprawling cityscape of Hiroshima came into view, a tapestry of life unaware of the impending doom. The bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, was armed. The countdown began, each tick of the clock a hammer blow to the silence that had descended upon the Enola Gay. At 8:15 a.m. local time, the bomb was released. The heart of Hiroshima, teeming with the rhythms of a city awakening, remained oblivious to the silent descent of Little Boy. The bomb, a culmination of scientific brilliance and chilling intent, pierced the sky. Then, at 8:15 a.m., the world exploded. A blinding flash, white-hot and all-consuming, engulfed Hiroshima. It was as if the sun itself had plummeted from the heavens, unleashing its full fury upon the unsuspecting city. Buildings vanished in a heartbeat, vaporized by temperatures that soared into the tens of thousands of degrees. The very air ignited, a searing wind of unimaginable force sweeping through the streets. In that instant, Hiroshima was transformed into a vision of hell, a crucible of unimaginable destruction. The blinding flash gave way to a deafening roar, a monstrous thunderclap that echoed across the mountains surrounding Hiroshima. The shockwave, a wall of compressed air moving at supersonic speeds, slammed into the city with the force of 1,000 hurricanes. Buildings that had withstood the initial blast crumbled into dust. Bridges twisted and buckled, their steel bones no match for the raw power unleashed. A massive mushroom cloud, its stem a churning column of fire and debris, rose from the heart of the devastated city. The once familiar skyline of Hiroshima was gone, replaced by a churning maelstrom of smoke, dust, and fire. The air, thick with the stench of burning wood and flesh, crackled with an unseen energy. And in the midst of this inferno, amidst the ruins of a city that had ceased to exist, human beings fought for survival. In the immediate aftermath of the blast, an eerie silence descended upon Hiroshima. The roar of the explosion faded into a ringing in the ears of those fortunate enough to survive. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, the silence was shattered. The cries of the injured, the desperate pleas for help, the wails of those who had lost everything filled the air. Many wandered aimlessly in shock, their minds struggling to comprehend the scale of the destruction. The injured stumbled through the streets, desperate for medical attention, but hospitals, if they still stood, were overwhelmed. The devastation in Hiroshima was absolute, unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. The bomb had not simply destroyed buildings, it had erased them, leaving behind only foundations and piles of rubble. The heat from the blast was so intense that it had seared shadows onto walls and streets. Outlines of people caught in their final moments, bicycles leaning against buildings, even the faint tracery of leaves on trees, were etched into the very fabric of the city. The air, thick with smoke and dust, was filled with the smell of death. Hiroshima, once a bustling city, had become a graveyard. The initial moments after the blast were a blur of confusion and terror. Those who could fled the inferno, their bodies battered, their minds reeling from the unimaginable. Many, though, stumbled through the ruins in a daze, their bodies bearing the horrific marks of the bomb. Their skin, burned and blistered, hung loosely, resembling melting wax. Hair stood on end, singed and turned to ash. The lucky ones, if you could call them that, had only minor injuries, cuts, bruises, burns from the flash. They cried out for water, for their mothers, for salvation from the living hell that had become their reality. Hiroshima, once a vibrant hub of life, was now a landscape of unimaginable devastation. The streets, once teeming with people, were eerily empty, save for the scattered debris and the occasional survivor staggering through the ruins. A thick pall of smoke hung low in the air, obscuring the sun and casting an eerie twilight glow over the shattered city. The air was thick with the stench of burning flesh and wood, a gruesome perfume that clung to everything. The silence, broken only by the crackle of flames and the distant moans of the injured, was deafening. The city, once a place of hope and dreams, was now a graveyard, its streets littered with the dead and dying. As the hours turned into days, the true horror of the atomic bombing began to reveal itself. The initial blast was only the beginning. A new and insidious enemy emerged: radiation. Invisible, insidious, it poisoned the air, the water, the very ground itself. Those who had initially survived the blast began to sicken. They vomited uncontrollably. Their hair fell out in clumps, their gums bled. Strange, dark spots appeared on their skin, the telltale signs of radiation sickness. The hospitals, already overwhelmed, became places of unimaginable suffering. News of the bombing of Hiroshima spread slowly at first, hampered by the fog of war and the sheer incomprehensibility of the event. Initial reports, censored by the military, spoke of a powerful new bomb, but gave little indication of the true scale of the devastation. But the truth, like a genie released from its bottle, could not be contained. Journalists and photographers allowed into Hiroshima days after the bombing sent back harrowing accounts and images that shocked the world. The world gasped in horror as the full extent of the devastation became clear. The bombing of Hiroshima marked a turning point in human history, ushering in the atomic age, an era defined by the awesome and terrifying power of the atom. The immediate horror of the atomic blast began to recede, but the true legacy of Hiroshima was only just beginning. The city, once a bustling center, lay in ruins, its streets littered with debris and haunted by the ghosts of the dead. The survivors, those who had escaped the initial blast, now faced a new and insidious enemy: radiation. Days turned into weeks and the invisible enemy began to reveal itself. Hair fell out in clumps, skin erupted in strange discolored blotches, and a wave of nausea and fatigue swept through those exposed. The lucky ones recovered, bearing the scars, both visible and invisible. Others succumbed to the delayed effects of radiation poisoning, their bodies betraying them from the inside out. The world watched, horrified, as the true cost of the atomic bomb became clear. The survivors, forever known as hibakusha, became living testaments to the destructive power of the atom. They bore the physical and psychological scars, their lives irrevocably altered by the events of that fateful day. Many faced discrimination, shunned by a society fearful of the unknown effects of radiation. Amidst the despair and the ruins, the spirit of Hiroshima refused to be extinguished. The survivors, their lives forever changed, clung to hope, determined to rebuild their lives and their city from the ashes. The road to recovery was long and arduous, paved with unimaginable hardship and loss. Slowly, painstakingly, Hiroshima began to rise from the ashes. Brick by brick, building by building, the city was reborn. The Genbaku Dome, once the industrial promotion hall, was left standing as a stark reminder of the devastation. A silent sentinel bearing witness to the horrors of that day. Parks and memorials were erected, spaces for reflection and remembrance, where the names of the victims were etched in stone, ensuring that their memories would never be forgotten. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, a somber and moving testament to the human cost of the bombing, opened its doors, dedicated to preserving the stories of the victims and advocating for a world free from nuclear weapons. The story of Hiroshima is not just a tale of a city destroyed, but a stark warning etched in the soul of humanity. It serves as a chilling reminder of the destructive power we wield, a power capable of annihilating not only our enemies but also ourselves. The iconic image of the Genbaku Dome, a skeletal silhouette against the reborn city, stands as a solemn testament to this truth. Hiroshima's legacy is multifaceted, a tapestry woven from devastation and resilience, from unimaginable loss and the indomitable human spirit. The city, forever scarred, made a conscious choice to embrace peace as its guiding principle. From the ashes of destruction rose a phoenix, not of vengeance but of hope, a beacon urging us to learn from the mistakes of the past. The echoes of Hiroshima's silent scream reverberate through time, urging us to strive for a world free from the threat of nuclear annihilation. It compels us to seek peaceful resolutions to conflict, to acknowledge the inherent worth of every human life, and to remember that the consequences of such immense power are ours to bear. The true legacy of Hiroshima lies not in the bomb itself, but in the enduring hope that we might yet forge a future where such horrors are relegated to the history books, never to be repeated. Thanks for watching.